Today, we're going to talk about how to develop a project timeline that covers all aspects of publishing from start to publication of your book. When planning out your book and your publishing timeline, it's essential that you plan this all out ahead of time to ensure that everything is going to go smoothly from the time that you start your book until the time that it is published. This is why you want to start planning and mapping all of your tasks out from the time you begin writing your book. Now, I understand this may feel like you're jumping ahead or you're becoming overconfident in your ability to meet all these deadlines that you set in this timeline, but it really isn't. Why? Because when you're creating this timeline ahead of time, you're kind of creating a roadmap for yourself, one that you're going to adjust and tweak along the way, because no one ever said that when you plan this, it's going to be set in stone. Now, the question is, what parts of your publishing process should you be scheduling and outlining ahead of time? One of these things you're going to outline and create a process for are all the deadlines that you're going to be having. And throughout this process, the publishing process, you're going to be facing several larger deadlines that are only going to push you closer to your book once you've achieved them. Now, some of these include finishing your first draft, which is by far the most important. Then it's going to be editing and proofreading that first draft, working on a second draft and finishing it, finding alpha readers. Alpha readers are these people who are going to find grammatical and developmental errors in your book and be like your first round of editors. Then it's going to be sending the manuscript to these alpha readers, receiving feedback from them, applying the edits, sending the manuscript for professional editing, waiting for those edits to come in, and then applying those, finding beta readers. Beta readers are going to see a more polished version of your book and are going to give you developmental feedback in the long run. Then once you get the feedback from these beta readers, you're going to make any last edits. Then you're going to begin finding ARC readers, which also needs a deadline. You're going to be sending the book to ARC readers, and then you're going to be publishing this book. Now, all of these need to be planned out so that you can have a higher chance of achieving them. However, there are also going to be smaller deadlines that we don't tend to think about to the very end that we need to achieve along the way as well. Some of these would be researching the market of your book genre, creating a cover for your book or hiring someone to create the cover for you, keyword research, creating marketing images and materials, researching book bloggers or reviewers that pair well with your book. You also want to think of reveals. So reveals do not just stick to your cover. They can also be for locations, characters, your book's description, even just your whole full book jacket. The opportunities are endless, and I think a lot of authors limit themselves to only doing their book cover reveals. You can also do sneak peeks of like the first chapter, or do a reading on YouTube or other social media platforms, or even just giving something to your newsletter subscribers. Also, additional content or bonus content such as maps, pop-up websites, short stories that are based in your book's universe. Planning ahead for each of these deadlines in your project timeline for your book or your publishing timeline is only going to ensure that you're not missing any crucial things, and also helping that you meet the deadline that you are going to set for yourself to publish this book. Another thing that we want to be considerate of is being intentional with your time. So many authors write most of the time, and while they're not writing, other portions of their time tend to go toward book editing or making aesthetically, inspirational, creative boards or character mock-ups or other things that don't particularly go toward their publishing timeline. However, when you're trying to stick to this publishing timeline, there are ways that we can be more intentional with our time to make sure that we fill in these little gaps that we don't tend to think about until the end. So my suggestion would be to allocate, a portion of your time each day or one day a week for each of these sections to ensure that you're reaching all of the aspects you need for your publishing timeline, and to ensure that you're not forgetting anything or scrambling at the last minute. One of these areas we want to be more intentional of how we spend our time is in writing. So something that we want to think about is a sacred time of day or week that we spend writing. This is going to be a time that we aren't going to sacrifice for, family get-togethers or for soccer practice or for various reasons. Now, vacations, obviously are going to be something that is always going to pop up, and you always are not going to reach your writing goal for that area of time. However, having this time every day is going to only help you get in the habit of writing and help you plan out your time more intentionally. And I also realized that while we don't always have the creativity to write every day, there are other ways we can spend this time writing that can also help us. Some of those ways are writing short stories in our book's universe that we can share with our audience to either build momentum or add on to what we've already shared with them. You could do writing prompts for when you're experiencing writer's block. There's a ton online you can find for free. Also, writing character bios or detailing book scenes can help your writing process along the way if you have that stuff already set up. Being intentional with your time writing is also making progress in writing. One of the other areas that we want to be intentional with our time is during our marketing. Marketing is by far one of the toughest parts of the publishing process, mainly because one, we have to do enough before our book is published in order to build momentum for our book. Two, we have to entice the reader in a way that we aren't just yelling, buy my book, in all of our content we post everywhere that we post our book. And three, we have to appeal them in a way that tells them they want or need our book in some way. So this is why it's important to set aside time for marketing, because there is so much involved in how we market and why we market our books. So when you're thinking about how you intentionally spend your time marketing, you're going to maybe spend your time creating eye-catching images, maybe include some quotes from readers. Maybe ARC readers gave you advanced feedback you can include in some of your marketing. Or maybe you have quotes from your book if you don't have any reviews yet that you can include with a cover of your book. Maybe you're looking at potential readers who are more likely to give you a review after they've read your book. Or maybe you're researching your target audience. Researching potential book bloggers and reviewers that pair with your book is also a great way to spend your time intentionally figuring out ways to market your book. Without all this information, our target audience is never going to find our book. Another area we want to be more intentional about spending our time is networking. A large part of publishing our book involves networking with the writing community and the reading community. By this, I'm referring to put all of your research that you've previously done into your book bloggers, your book reviewers, or potential readers that might pair well with your book. And you're going to interact and connect with these book bloggers and reviewers and early readers for your book. Did you notice I put that in 2 different steps? So interacting with these people should come first, meaning you're going to go comment, share, or start conversations on these people content months in advance. Because ideally, when we do this and make these connections months in advance, we become more recognizable to these people. We show that we value what they have to say. And when we become recognizable and we do a book submission to them, or we contact them and ask them if they'd be interested in reading and reviewing our book, we're more likely to get a yes, because we have shown that we've cared, we've done the work, and we've shown that maybe we can be mutually beneficial to one another. Now, in terms of contacting these people after you've done the interaction portion, is for book bloggers and reviewers, you're going to go to their submission guidelines, which are usually found in their social media bio, on their blog, or on their website. Please be sure to take the time to read through this and see what they require, because otherwise, all the interaction you've done, all the progress you've made up until this point is for nothing if you're not going to respect their wishes and go through their process. So please be sure to do that. For early readers, you want to reach out over email or a message on social media, and you want to first tell them how you feel they would be a good fit for your book. You also want to ask them to be interested in receiving an ARC copy of your book, and ask that they be interested in telling other people or leaving an honest review on Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, or wherever your book is sold. So do you remember how I said networking is also about the writing community? This is also where connecting and networking with other authors in your niche or genre come in handy. Because once you make some of these connections and network with some of these other authors that pertain to your genre or your niche, you could do endless possibilities. You could do, newsletter swaps. You could do author audience collaboration swaps. You could do reviewing another author's book, each other's books, and putting them on Goodreads or BookBub. There's so many possibilities, but it won't happen overnight. Just like these book bloggers and reviewers I mentioned before, or the early readers, you need to be intentional. You need to show that you care, and you need to show that you value what these other authors are doing. So be sure you take the time to build relationships. Be sure that you take the time to share or comment on their posts or start conversations. Because honestly, when you start building relationships with these other authors, there's a good chance your audiences are going to cross over and you could be mutually beneficial for one another. The key thing to take away from this is that when you set yourself a publishing timeline, you are avoiding the various obstacles that are put in people's way who do not plan ahead. If you feel that you get stuck along the way or you feel like you don't know how to start by making yourself a checklist. Set out all your deadlines for all of your big obstacles and all of your small deadlines in one neat little folder. And know that all of your deadlines are not set in stone. They can be changed, they can be tweaked, they can be adjusted as things tend to move because we all know they always do. And know that if you are setting yourself a publishing timeline and intentionally using your time wisely, it can be achievable. My name is Kayla Hicks, and I'm a multi-genre indie author with books in young adult, children's picture books, and superhero fiction. I talk a lot to my audience about audience building, writing, and publishing, and I have been publishing books professionally since 2014. You can find me on places like Medium, X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm pretty much everywhere. And my website is kaylahicks.com.